right, everybody. It's Aidan Henry here again from Brink Events. I hope you guys are all doing well during this interesting time in the world. We're once again very excited to be doing our 4th edition of Focal Points here. We've got Christina Matteucci here from David Beahm Experiences, and we're going to be talking to her in a sec. But as usual, just want to let you know, Focal Points, what is it? It's the interview series where we interview top event designers and professionals from around the world to see what makes them tick. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump in and I'm going to talk to Christina here. And obviously we're living in an interesting time right now with what's going on with the COVID-19 virus and just an interesting state of the world. So let's jump right in and say, how has this virus affected some of your upcoming events?
Ooh, well, I mean, first of all, I'm in New York City, so I think that's important to state right off the bat. And New York has really in the past 2 weeks taken a beating. In addition to all around the country, we're not alone in that, but we have taken a beating. That said, I think what has been amazing about the last 2 weeks is how the industry has really banded together to support one another and really to be of best service to our clients, bandying together so that we can collectively come up with solutions that are advocating not only for ourselves and our businesses, but also for our clients. So I want to start off by saying that in terms of how it's directly impacted David Beahm, fortunately, we have been in a position over the last few weeks to be fielding more postponements than we are cancellations, which is a blessing for us. Mm-hmm. So that has been what we as a team have been doing with our varying planners. So to clarify, we're event designers, not planners. So we are partnering with planners and venues and our clients to move and pivot and shift and be as nimble as possible when approaching these postponements, and also trying to look at, what this is going to cause for all of us. I believe is for the good, very, very rich Q3 and Q4.
I was gonna go ahead.
I hope. And what that means for us is not only taking care of the clients that are moving into Q3 and Q4 from Q2, but making sure that the commitments that we made to those clients who booked in Q3 and Q4, that we're still protecting those interests and never overstacking weekends simply to make a move. That doesn't benefit the client that's moving. It doesn't benefit the client that was already booked for October and November, and it certainly doesn't benefit us as an industry. So that's how we've been reacting in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the same. We found the same. We haven't had really, I think we've had personally, with our company, 1 cancellation, but most have been postponements or a few that are kind of in that summer period where it's kind of, we're just wait and see. I mean, I'm not overly optimistic that those will happen. It's really hard to put a timeline on anything. Everything is kind of day by day, week by week at this point. It's people want, hey, when can we start doing events again? I mean, when can we? Who knows? And even when the ban is lifted on the numbers and the virus has subsided, if you want to call it that, are people going to be, immediately interested in going to events? Are they going to want to get out and congregate? I mean, these are the questions that we're having to ask as well. So, whether it's a private event where people are just brought in and there's one person paying the bill, call it the wedding party or the company, or if it's a ticketed event like a charity event, how is that selling process going to be for the client? How is sponsorship going to go with the financial situation? How is all this other stuff going to go? So, but to your point, I think we're in the same boat too. We want to make sure that we're servicing our clients that are in the fall and winter properly and not overbooking, because obviously, like you say, I think the fall and the winter for everybody is just going to be slammed, like crazy busy. But we got to make sure that we're still able to execute at the same level for the clients we already had, even though we're probably moving a lot of work into that time period. So any more thoughts on that kind of, stuff?
Yeah, I mean, for us, what has been a blessing is that we have always been a very diversified company in that we not only carry corporate events, which I think, unfortunately, so many of my colleagues in this industry who rely so heavily upon corporate events, whether it be corporate catering or just your president's meetings and things of that nature. Though, my colleagues that really rely upon that business alone have been hit terribly hard. Thankfully for us, we've always diversified between the corporate and the social end of things. And I think when we do return to events, I hope people go in wholeheartedly and just say, now we have something to celebrate. Especially in the worlds of social events where so much heart is involved with those things, so much emotion. Will people be doubtful of going to events? Certainly they will. I think there's going to be some fallout on that a little bit at the beginning, but I also know that I've been through the financial crisis of 2008. I was living in New York during 9/11. Here's what I know. People continue to get married. They continue to have babies. They continue to celebrate birthdays. They continue to have bar and bat mitzvahs. They continue to celebrate anniversaries. These are milestones of life that as humans, we congregate together to celebrate together. So in that regard, I think we have to see a return to events. And we do know that this has an end. We don't know when that end is, but we know that this will run its course. And we know that this will eventually crest and ebb, and then we'll be able to get on with it in a new way, in a newly informed way, but we'll be able to get on with life. And I promise you that she might have popped up, and she did. Everyone, this is my co-star, Junebug, my rescue cat. She is 13, and she was saved from the Brooklyn Navy Yard about 13 years ago. She's precocious and decided to join us for the call, so I apologize.
Oh, no, that's good. It's good to have a little bit of background there going on. It's keeps us interested. When my boring conversation comes up, people can focus on the cat. So,
of course, she pops up.
No, I agree. I mean, this is so interesting right now for us being event planners, because what do we do, or event planners, designers? We bring people together. That's what we love to do. That's why we do what we do. And what are we doing right now? We're isolating. We're social distancing. I mean, this is the complete opposite of what we're trying to do professionally and what we love doing in life. So it's such a hard time right now. And I full-heartedly believe what you're saying. When this is over, people are going to come together. We're humans. We want to connect. We want to engage. We want to get together. We want to share a cocktail and some food and do some dancing and have a good times and gallivant and do all that kind of fun stuff. So people are yearning for that right now. A lot of us have only been in isolation for, a week or two or whatever it is, but that seems like a year or two, which just goes to show how much we need that personal human connection. So I'm in the same boat. I think there's going to be some people that are a little bit paranoid when this is over to congregate, but I think you're going to see a lot of people that are just so excited to be back around people and out of their bunkers.
To be together. I do want to touch for a moment about mental health and all of this. One of the things that has been very, very difficult for me, I'm Italian Portuguese, right? How I conduct myself with my friends, even how I conduct business, how I handshake, is so much of my style as a human being, and not even style, but how I interact with the world has been stymied by this and stifled. And it was really quite, once this started to go down and I started to realize, I can't give my neighbor a hug. I can't shake hands with my client. I can't pick up that baby and hold them. It's been very psychologically difficult for me personally to work through that. And So I think in all of this self-care, well, yes, we are all advocates for our clients. We are all, a lot of times we are our clients psychiatrists or psychologists, psychiatrists,
Yeah.
therapists. And we give and we give and we give. And part of why we are in this industry, I believe, is because each and every one of us want to make people happy. And we want to take care of people. We're caregivers. We want to make things amazing and beautiful, and we want to create joy.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we have to some extent, also be making sure we're doing that for ourselves. So whether that is meditation, or which David has been doing every day on Instagram, he's hosting a live, but right around about noon or 11 every day, he's been hosting a live meditation for people. Or whether it's, for me, sinking into writing and being creative and music, and really sort of taking care of myself in that way, cooking, just making sure that you're nurturing yourself in this difficult time, because we are all in the same boat with financials and the fear of the business and where it's going to go. But the one thing that, and we can't control this virus, but we can control what's in our little quarantine department for me. And for me right now, that's creating a place of peace and calm for myself. And I think that's really important, is to not go so far down the rabbit hole of fear. And there's plenty to be afraid of. But here's the thing, we're all afraid in that together. We're all there. We're on the same boat. Like, we're all together. We're on the same island. So we might as well start to take care of ourselves, even if we can't care for someone else right now.
And I always think, what's the best I can do at this moment, given the resources that I have? I think that, and what do I have control over? You don't have control over what's going on in the world, what other countries and governments and other people are doing. All we can do is do the best we can for ourselves and the people around us, given the resources we have, which at this point is the best thing we can do is isolate and, like you say, keep track of our mental health, maybe do a bit of exercise, meditation, cook, eat right, stay positive. I'm doing a lot of creative stuff. I'm, talking to people like yourself, which is still inspiring to me, even through this tough time, reading books, watching videos, combing the internet for cool event design photos, and coming up with new ideas. We're working on a signature event series for Brink Events that we're going to be introducing next year, where we're coming up with concepts ahead of time, almost like movie scripts, and then we're pitching them to clients.
Great. How wonderful to be that's such a proactive, beautiful use of your time, Aiden. Like to get out ahead of things, so that when you are busy in the fall, you have this coterie of designs you can pull from and be like,
we've got this arsenal built up. So it's been a cool time for us. We're just over 8 years in now. So we got a lot of great clients that come to us and give us the creative freedom and some good budgets as well. But they don't know what they necessarily want. They know they want a social event. They want to dazzle their guests, whether it's a charity or a corporation or whatever. They don't necessarily know where it is. They don't know what it is. So, they come to us and you kind of piece things together. Like, here's the venue. Let's go with this caterer. Let's go with this band. Rather than do that, what we're doing is we're coming up with this group of 5 to 10 events that we're going to have in our arsenal, where we know the venue. We know what the food and beverage will look like, what the music and entertainment, and we're coming up with that ahead of time. And then when we have a client that comes to us that doesn't have an idea what they want, we can go, okay, got it. How about this? And we've got a name for it. We've got colors, we've got brand, we got design around it. And then we can pitch that party, and we'll add on a design fee to what we're doing, because we've gone ahead of time to actually put that together and put time and effort and resources into actually building that and crafting that ahead of time.
It's so smart, Aiden. Like, truly, bravo to you. And that's the sort of thought leading that needs to be taking place right now, whether, like just getting out ahead of things. Because it's going to be a wonderful onslaught. And, ooh, honey, I can't wait for that onslaught. Like, bring it. Like, bring it back. But it's going to be overwhelming. It's going to be, it's going to be like a tidal wave. And so I think for us, we need to be prepared, and anything that we can do like that to get out ahead of things is critical.
Well, and I'll just share one more thing. I don't want to, take this away from you, but one thing we're doing too is things that are not time sensitive. So we know we've got an event with a client. We don't know when exactly it's going to be, but is the layout going to change? Probably not. The design plan? Probably not. The menu for when, the food and beverage happens? Probably not. I mean, we don't want to lock in our suppliers and vendors now because we don't know the event date. It's going to move. But what are the pieces that we can take care of now that are not going to matter? It's, when the time comes, it's more than like, what kind of music do we want? What kind of, menu? What kind of design plan? These are things that are going to shift with the event no matter when the date is. So we're trying to think of those things that can move with the event so we don't have to, do that after. We can get a hold of the suppliers and vendors and lock the dates once we know where this virus is going. But we can still do that work ahead of time. That is not time sensitive.
Absolutely. It's not, for me, I'm still very much, even though I'm home, I'm in my little sanctuary, I'm still pulling 8 to 10 hour days because that's what
good.
needs to be done. Like, and I'm just not one of those people to take this and be like, oh, vacation.
Yeah.
If I sat around and watch TV all day and watch the numbers tick up, which we know they're going to tick up, it's just, it's a recipe for depression, for anxiety, for all of those things. So I'm choosing to sink myself into my work, but also sink myself into creative things that are feeding me, feeding my soul in this time.
Yeah, you can drive yourself crazy by watching the news and watching social media and combing the internet all day. But, I try and, maybe check the numbers once or twice a day and get a little bit of an update on what my province or what your state is doing. And then you know what's going on, and that's good. And then leave it at that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Without further ado, let's jump into the stuff that's more exciting and that's more inspirational. I mean, we had to get over that a little bit because it's a crazy time in the world, but maybe just tell people a little bit about your background and how you got into events and how you met David Beahm, because I know you've got a very interesting relationship and you've been very vocal and public about it. So maybe tell us a little bit more about your background and your experience.
Absolutely. So actually yesterday, March 20th was my 18-year anniversary with David Beahm. So, thank you. So I joined David immediately following 9/11. The city was in a state of emergency. But to give you a little bit of a background, my education, I went to NY. I was born and raised in San Francisco, Bay Area. And I came to New York in 97 to pursue a career on Broadway. I was a theater kid. I went to NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, got into this very, competitive program. By the time I graduated in May of 2001, I'd performed at Carnegie Hall. I'd performed at Lincoln Center. I was up for my first Broadway show. And then my grandmother passed away in June. She was older, to be expected. My 57-year-old father passed away in July, and 9/11 happened that September. And as a 21-year-old with no family in a new city, working retail, auditioning, how do you even psychologically get through that? And what I did to get through that, which was a time in a way kind of like this, was that I went to what made me happy. And what made me happy was that from the time I was 13 years old, I subscribed to bridal magazines because I loved the theater of it. It's the last sort of vestige of pageantry in the real world. The Brits have the royal family. We don't really have anything of that, that level of formality and pageantry. No. And I loved it. I loved every bit of it. So I would subscribe to bridal magazines. So I'd come home from work, and be grieving my grandmother, my father, grieving my city, and would flip through the pages of these bridal magazines. And finally, one day I said to myself, well, why don't I do something that actually makes me happy? Why don't I do weddings? So at the time, the internet was sort of like it was just sort of like coming into its heyday, and the not.com had just started. And so I went to my corner internet cafe and got on the internet and signed up as bride Christina Matteucci. And I went on the not.com and I looked for all of the event designers who had $5 bills by their name, because at the time that's how they ranked.
Oh, okay.
That's how they ranked. They ranked you by dollar bill signs. And I was like, well, I want to go to the best. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to work for the best, and the best. So in there, amongst established people like Colin Cowie and Preston Daly, there was this David Beahm. And I went to his website, and it was just a landing page. And I had done some research, and I found out that his company was relatively young. He was from Virginia, but he had just done Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas's wedding. So I was like, this is the guy. This is the guy. And I don't know why, but it was like, this is the guy I want to work for. I want to make it. I know I can make his business better. He's an artist. He's young. This company is young. I'm able and ready to make this something great. And so I faxed him a cover letter and a resume every month for 8 months on the first Monday of the month. And the following Wednesday, I would call to make sure he got the fax. Wow. And finally he said, all right. Like, fine, I'll meet you. That was 8 months later, and he hired me, and I've been with him ever since. Wow. And we do, I'm very vocal about the power of being a number two. And I take, in this current age of entrepreneurialism where success is defined by having your name on the door, I take up for the number twos. I take up for the people who are behind the scenes, who are making it happen. Because without implementers, visionaries are nothing.
Yep.
But on the flip side, without visionaries, implementers are nothing. So it is
symbiotic relationship.
Exactly. But there's only ever one person on the cover of Forbes.
Yep.
But I can bet you that there is somebody at home that night when that magazine comes out, looking at the cover, pouring themselves a glass of wine or a bourbon on the rocks and saying, I got him there.
Yeah.
Like, and so I take up for those people, and David and I really celebrate our relationship, and we celebrate how different we are and how much we have learned from each other. Yeah. And also how much we absolutely adore each other and try to take care of each other. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. You guys, like 18 years with anybody. I mean, you look at people getting married these days, or any businesses, people that being together for 18 years, that's probably like 2 or 3 lifetimes these days. So, and you guys are still doing it, and you guys are still enjoying it from what I understand. So, I mean, it's a pretty amazing thing.
It's definitely a work marriage. And I have to say that one of the things about David that's really special is that he really does, he's able to create community. So actually, the bulk of our employees have been with us for, I think for the most part, I mean, the next person past me has been with us for 13 years.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking
That's
about,
impressive.
Yeah, we're really talking about a group of people we work side by side, and there's certainly those sort of like family bickering moments where you know.
Yeah.
But we really do, what David has done and continues to do is create a sense of family amongst our team.
Yeah.
And we care for each other a tremendous amount. So we're protectors of each other, and we're protectors of him, and we're protectors of our clients and the business.
Yeah.
So
and
it's a nice environment to be a part of.
Yeah, and I even feel that from the social media that you guys put out, that it's a real family thing. It's everybody cares for each other. It's not like hey, okay, we did this event, on to the next one. Let's hammer through this. Let's get the design done. Let's make our money and go. It's like everybody cares for each other, and it's a community. And you know, you guys, it's more than just business. Let's put it that way.
And I think one of the things why David is able to keep people, which I hate that phrase, like you can't keep anyone, but why David has retained the group that we have is that he is very generous in his thanks. So yes, it is 100% David Beahm Experiences. The buck stops with him. It is his name on the door. He did it for a reason. But if you go to our social media, if you go to his Facebook page, he is so often, if not outrightly, honoring a member of our team or honoring a strategic vendor partner. He's tagging. We're relentless about crediting people. Everybody hiccups on that every now and again. You forget someone, but we really are, and make every effort to be relentless about that, because without the team, we can't do it. And he can't do it. So he can have his name on the door, but it's our amazing family of full-time. It's our freelancers. It is our artisans, our vendors, our partners in creating these magnificent events that we really do try to create relationships with and try to honor whenever we can.
Yeah, no, and I agree too. We're a small company. There's only 2 of us at the company here, and people, often say to us, how big is your company? Like, you guys do big events, and you guys 10, 20 people, and I say we're 2. They're like, how on earth? And at the end of the day, it's because we rely on our suppliers and our vendors. We might have 50 to 100 people working on an event. Whether it's sound and lighting and catering and decor or entertainment and all that. It makes us look like we're a big company, but they're not our employees. They don't work for us, but they're part of our team. And I think that's an important thing that needs to be said. Even though they're getting money and it's a business transaction, we need to take care of them because they're part of our team. They're a reflection of our work because we're the ones bringing everybody together. And at the end of the day, it's a reflection of us in terms of how our sound and lighting and how our catering and everything looks. So I think it's, like you say, it's really important to not only highlight, even just team members, but your partners in the community and your vendors and whatnot.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, at times like this is when those relationships matter more than ever. Because when you have, as a designer, when you're embarking upon an event, you may have, you carry a certain amount of the work yourself through Brink, but you have partners in that, and those partners have to be as nimble as you in order to make these shifts happen. 100%. Right? So you may have a vendor who otherwise, if it was maybe a partner who hadn't treated them well previously, and you say, look, this is the only date that works for my client that we postponed till. Can you make it happen? A great vendor partner is going to say whatever you need. And a great vendor partner is going to do that because you've treated them that way all the way along.
Yeah, especially with the current state, like with people moving events and deposits and asking for, help in ways that they haven't. And if you're going by certain contracts, you wouldn't be able to move, or you wouldn't get your deposit back. But if you're good with your vendors and suppliers, hopefully that can be transferred, or you can get a refund or whatever it might be, which we're finding is the case because we try and be on good terms with all of our vendors. So hopefully that is the case. So just going to move along to, a very important piece. So, in terms of the industry, what is it that just gravitates you so much towards this? What do you like about the industry? What's your favorite part about your work?
I'm a problem solver.
Okay.
I love it. I love it. You know, we recently did probably the largest job in our company's history. And it was, I mean, when I tell you we were on the job site for over 2 weeks in advance of the event. We built roads. I mean, it was the highest level of production that I had been involved with and was so proud of it. But it required a tremendous amount of logistics, and it required understanding where everybody was at one given time. And having a theater background really helped me to really get underneath that project, because we were having a very difficult time. All of the vendors, we were, really grappling with, well, who's here on this day and what's that and how are we doing this and how is this overlapping? And in the theater, you have tracks. An actor will have a track in a theatrical show, and that that's your track. And so I said, well, why don't I just start creating tracks? And so I actually created what ended up sort of looking like a sheet music. If you think of sheet music with the varying instruments that are layered one on top of the other in an orchestration, that's what I did for this project. And each vendor had a vendor track. That is what I enjoy. I enjoy the really, really complex ops and logistics and solving the problems.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Like, that is really where I thrive. I love people. I love my clients. I love working with my clients. Yeah. And I love weddings. I love the theatricality of weddings. But where I sit and where I thrive is in organization and in ops and in logistics. That's where I sort of find my place. And right now, what's been interesting that somebody pointed out, again, sorry to keep pivoting back and touch pointing on Corona, but I think what it is an interesting thing is where right now those things that excite us all are really the touch points we need to be honing in on. So for me, recently went through a massive reschedule, which was very difficult. And finally we landed the new date, and it was like, like, what are those victories that you're able to take on right now? It may not be, it may not be layering 50 vendors on a track, but it is layering in 50 possible dates and figuring out one that works. And it's those things that you have to take the small wins right now and be able to take joy from them. Yeah, you got to celebrate those little victories right now. We can't just look at everything like doom and gloom, like you say. So, and just touching on what you said there, I think one of the interesting parts about our industry, especially with what we do, is we throw these big, beautiful parties and champagne and beautiful flowers and all this. But what does it actually come down to in terms of the 99% of the work? It's spreadsheets, it's checklists, it's to-dos, it's schedules. It's, I talk to a lot of groups about this who are interested, people interested in the event industry and some, schools and all that. And people say, oh, you do parties and all that. I'm like, yeah, but that is not the bulk of the work. It's what you're talking about. It's pickup and delivery schedules and stuff. Like, there is an art to doing a pickup and delivery schedule. I firmly believe. Like, what you're talking about with this track thing, the first word that came to mind for me was dependencies. So we can't do this until this gets done, and then this can't get done until this gets done, and then when this road is in place, we can do this. So if this is backlogged and this doesn't happen, like, there's an art to actually knowing how long these take and having backup plans and contingencies, because And when is the generator on? When is the generator on? When is there light outside? Do we need to bring lights in because we're doing stuff at night, or is it cold? Or just thinking of all these things. Clients don't think of this. They just say, oh, the suppliers will deliver, and then people pick up after the event. Well, if you've got 20 to 30 coming at the same time, they can't all be coming at the same time. You have to have maybe, increments in when they're coming so that there's enough loading bays or enough room for them. Like, there's just so much to this that I think that you're touching on that people don't see
but that's why we're paid to do what we do, is to make this stuff hopefully look easy. But, we embrace these challenges. I'm in the same boat as you too. I love the problem solving, the organizational stuff, the thinking behind the scenes. As much as I love the creative side, there's an art to the actual process and the documentation and making sure that these things just all fit in terms of the setup, the takedown, the pickups and deliveries, to just make it feel like it happened the way it should have.
And
you know what I mean?
and if I can go back and pick up on an earlier thread, is why I think we do have the retention that we do on our team, is that what David has done in his hiring throughout the year is to create a balance of people who are super, super creative, artistic people, and super sort of people who are very organized, logistical people. You've heard me talk about this, but I think it's an important metaphor. I often say that the reason David and I work well together is because he's like Jackson Pollock. So he has this big white wall and pots of paint, and he can splatter paint all over it, and because he can see the bigger picture of the creativity. And I'm more like Georges Seurat, pointillism with all the little points of paint, and I create a little postage stamp size portrait that is tedious and meticulous, and just every point matters. So, and together, we create a really beautiful painting, and it's like that throughout my team. We have people who are super, super creative, and people who are super, super like granular with details. Yes, it causes conflict sometimes because due to very different brains, it causes conflict with David and I. But what it does, I think, is to create a really healthy balance on our team and throughout our company. And I think that that's an important sort of point to just a thread to bring back in.
I know you got the group flying at 35,000 feet going, let's have circus performers, and we're going to have these giant flowers and this and that. And then there's the other group that's kind of closer to the ground that's saying, okay, wait a minute. What do we got for budget? What do we got for logistics? And then hopefully it comes in somewhere in the middle, hopefully nearer to the clouds than the ground. But you got the two groups that are kind of pushing and pulling from different directions. You need the people that are crazy with the ideas up here, that are just throwing stuff out there and hoping for the best. You also need the people that go, okay, wait a minute, we got to actually make this happen if that's what you want to do. So I think, like you say, there's always that push and pull between, having this crazy, unrealistic goal, but then actually being able to execute it. Because at the end of the day, you can have crazy, unrealistic ideas, but you still have to be able to implement that. It has to be on budget. You have to be able to do it logistically, and it has to have that impact that you're looking for. So I think it's a healthy mix of both. So just moving along here, we've talked about what we love about the industry, but as with any industry, any job, any career, whatever, there's stuff that you're not going to like. There's stuff that's a darker side. There's things that, you're not going to love your work 100% of the time. Hopefully it's 90%, and I think that might even be a stretch, but, there are some things that you're not going to like, and that are, a little bit darker and deeper. So maybe let us know kind of from your perspective, what do you not like about the industry, or what are some harder times for you, or what can you share about what maybe people don't see, from the outside looking in?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, and I'm not sure I've ever been asked that before. I think it's really hard for me. I'm going to speak to this from a personal perspective.
Sure.
I think it's really hard for me as an overachiever and a perfectionist not to be able to do it all.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
Control freak, would you say?
Yeah, I was just super control freak, super anal retentive. Like, it's really hard for me. We're known for beautiful flowers. I mean, sure, push came to shove, I could guess. Yes, I could do an arrangement, but it kills me that's not my forte, that's not what I'm good at. I have members of my team who can, like, if you had a pile of furniture sitting in the middle of a room, could style it and make it look, oh my God, make it look like $1 million. That's not my wheelhouse in that way. But boy, I can turn out a floor plan. I can turn out a timeline. I can turn out a production schedule. I can turn out a gorgeous proposal. I can sell you it. But not being able to do it all is hard. And that's gotten easier over time as I've gotten older and been like, okay, no, that's not, here's the thing, that's not a detriment to you. It's the other side. It's celebrating what your skill set really is, and being able to acknowledge what your skill set really is. But it's hard sometimes when like for me, like just seeing these magical, like seeing an event come to life, and it really is on any job, it's magical. But when it's a big job, seeing it come to life in such, and not having a physical participation in it. I've done all the brain work on it. I've done all the behind the scenes, putting everything together, but not actually physically creating that centerpiece or being able to style that furniture. That's hard for me. I wish but I have an amazing team who does it really, really well. And I'm so appreciative for them. And I think,
and it sounds like
I envy their talent.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're embracing that though. And I think it's, there's the old saying, master or jack of all trades, master of none, which I don't think we can all be good at everything. I think that then you're kind of mediocre at everything. And if you really want to create a company that's successful, you got to kind of stick to your lane, know what your strengths are, know what your weaknesses are. And it sounds like you guys have that great. I mean, you know what you're good at, and you know what the other team members are good at, and you guys kind of stick to your lane generally. I mean, you might veer off the road a little bit and get into the creative side or more on the organization side or whatever. But I think that it's important to kind of know what you're good at. But, I struggle with that too. We're a small company, so we kind of got to be involved in everything. And I wish I could even do more, but, I kind of, with the gal that works with me, Steph, she's more on the logistics organization side. I try and stick a little bit more to the creative vision side, but there's days when, I'm completely on the other side or she's on the other side. So it's, a little bit of give and take in terms of everything. But like you say, I think it's tricky to try and stick with what you're supposed to, but it's probably better for the long run strategically for the company. So so for you guys at David Beahm Experiences, sort of, what is your signature style? So what are some of the things, like, I know you mentioned floral, but there's companies that pride themselves on lighting, or they just love their linens, or they love their focal points, or they like playing with ice, or, metallic pieces. So if you had to break it down, just to give me a few little bits, what are the things that you guys do in particular that really kind of sets you apart with your style?
So I'm going to take this a different way. David actually would be mortified if somebody walked into one of our jobs and said, this is a David Beahm job.
Oh, wow.
We don't want to have a signature style. We want to be the best stewards of our client's style that we can. And to inform our designs based on the story that they're trying to tell their guests about themselves, about their event, about whether it's their love story or their school that they're maybe hosting a fundraiser for. We want to be the ambassadors of that. So we actually prefer to say that there isn't a signature David Beahm style.
Interesting.
Yes, our florals are a signature part of what we do. Because David grew up working in a flower shop, and because he owns a flower farm, like, these are things that are just ingrained in who he is. And, we love, flowers bring life to every event. They bring vulnerability and softness and beauty and nature inside to every event. And so we love floral. But how we use that floral can change dramatically from one event to the next. And I think that for us, being fluid has served us well. Has allowed us to work with a broad diversity of clientele, and super branded parties versus super, let's say, more residential feeling parties. It just is allowed us to really sort of traipse through that stratosphere. I will say this: what we are good at, what we're great at, is producing New York worthy events anywhere in the world.
Okay.
And being able to produce in the desert of Utah, being able to produce in Barbados, a New York City wedding with tons of Dutch floral, peonies and hydrangea and roses on a Caribbean island where there's really orchids and ginger and tropicals, and that's about it. Working in a teeny tiny village in Tuscany. All of these things, working in a fishing village in Montenegro, this is what we excel at. We excel at being able to create, it's our tagline for our business, anything you can imagine anywhere in the world. And we really can. We thankfully, because the event industry and because of David's standing and our standing, not only with the floral market, but with our colleagues, we really can work anywhere, and we do it well. And I think if there's a signature, we do that really well.
No, that gives me a new perspective. I've always thought, the floral, or you mentioned something like that, but I get more of this, like, you're like a chameleon, which truly, like, if you are customizing and doing personalization on every single event, it should be that way. You shouldn't be able to recognize a certain style if every event is particular to the client, to the location, to the budget, to the circumstances. There shouldn't really be too much of a common thread throughout. So it's an interesting way to answer the question, but I can definitely appreciate that. So 2 more questions quickly, and the first one will be a fire it off. Just for people out there, what is one event that you can talk about publicly? Because I know that you guys do a lot of stuff that you can't really talk about. But what is one event maybe that you can talk about publicly that you've just done that you were excited about, and one event that you've got coming up that you're excited about? Is there anything you can say publicly in terms of clients or big events?
I can't say any names.
Not at all, hey?
No, we're very protective, and actually, with very few exceptions on our social media, that you'll see any people. Very few, very few, and it's with explicit permission.
Okay,
and that's for a reason. We really do. It's not that the names that we have or we carry are necessarily, celebrities. There are certainly ones that are, but it's just about the privacy of our clients, and we really respect that. So I can talk to you about concepts and things that I'm excited about moving forward conceptually, but in terms of like actual clients, we're pretty tight-lipped about that. I can tell you, I just recently did a really beautiful wedding at the Plaza Hotel in January. It was a small number of guests, and usually at the Plaza you'll have the ceremony in the terrace room, and you'll have the dinner in the ballroom. That's the natural flow of that venue. And this client, because they had a more intimate gathering of guests, they decided to have the ceremony on the stairs.
Okay.
And then use the terrace room for dinner. And it's so rare to see the terrace room used for social events. And it's such an iconic room. To use it that way was phenomenal. And she really wanted it to feel like a dinner party in a really beautiful home. And that's what we did. So we created long tables and beautiful tall branch arrangements that basically made it feel like there were trees growing over the tables. And it was a spectacular event with spectacular, appreciative, lovely clients. The other thing that I'm really excited about, Aiden, is I went to an all-girls school growing up. And so this coming fall, and I can say this because we did post about it on social media, we're going to be working with the Nightingale Bamford School in New York City, which is an all-girls institution from K to 12.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, I'm really excited about that because my all-girls education in Oakland, California at Holy Names High School was instrumental to the woman that I've become. It was really sort of a benchmark in my life of saying, like, you're empowered, you are capable, you're more than capable, you are able to exceed expectations. And so I'm really excited about working with an all-girls institution and really bringing a light to their mission. Yeah,
that's important to you. So I could totally see that. Even though it's not necessarily the school you went to, it's the same principles, the same, hopefully these girls, grow up with the same sort of hope, dreams, aspirations, and can achieve this stuff like you have. So, it's great when we get to work with groups that are doing that kind of stuff. For us, charities and nonprofits are doing amazing work, and they continue to inspire us. And it's not just work for us; it's exposing those causes and hopefully getting more people behind what they're doing. So, last question for you.
Give it to me. Here we go.
There you go. So ready? It's going to hit hard here. This is going to be an interesting one. So where do you see yourself and David Beahm Experiences in 1, 2, 5 years from now? I mean, obviously right now in the short term, we don't really need to go into that because we've already talked about that. But like, where do you see yourself personally, and where do you see the company going in the next few years?
Yeah. So I think I'm going to be with David for a long time. I mean, we are a dynamic duo. I can only continue to see the business grow, continue to see more of those projects, like what I was talking about, that huge one that we did. Yes, bring those on all day long. Like I want to go down that rabbit hole 15 more times. It was the hardest work of my life. It was some of the most rewarding work of my life. I will continue to do that. I will also continue to be a voice for the number twos, and I will continue to. So I do public speaking on as well as working for David. I just did a TEDx talk.
I saw that. It was great.
Thank you. And so for your listeners, if you want to check that out, you Google my name and TED, it pops right up. But here's the thing. I am building corporate cultures in which every person, whether you are a number 1 or a number 2 or a number 12, you feel appreciated and of value. And so that's what I'm building. That's what I want to continue to build upon in terms of my public speaking and coaching and writing. So 5 years from now, I'd love to be doing more speaking. It is for me sort of a coming together of all of the pieces of my puzzle. It's the theater background coming into play, but I couldn't have done the talks that I do now without having spent 18 years with David. There's just no way. It brings it all together for me in such a beautiful package and such a rewarding package in terms of being able to highlight our industry, which I think is often overlooked, because what we do is so ephemeral. We are not architects. Our buildings don't last for 100 years, 200 years. We are not artists. Our paintings don't hang on a wall for 500 years. What we create is something that is of a moment, a very short amount of time, and then it goes away. And it's never again that same thing again. And so by doing public speaking about corporate culture, about this unique relationship that I have with my number 1, I'm also in turn bringing a light to the special event industry. And that's something that I take really, really seriously, because what we do is an art. It really is.
Yep.
And I don't think a lot of people treat it as such, including us. And I'm out to change that. And so for me, the public speaking, the writing, the coaching, all of that work is symbiotic with my work at David Beahm. And one supports the other and vice versa.
Yeah. No, I definitely see a process. You couldn't be doing this coaching and this speaking and pulling together all these things you've learned through your experience without having that time with David. I always see things as a process. Like we always look back and we go, I should have done this, or I could be here, I could be doing this, but it's all incremental steps. You know what I mean? You've taken pieces that you've learned, for better or for worse, and iterated. That's a word we use all the time, is iteration. It's incrementally improving, getting better, learning more, and it's just a process. And that's life, that's career, that's personal, that's everything. And you take that into consideration, and you gain this understanding and this knowledge that you can hopefully share with others so that they can get ahead faster and learn from your mistakes and take what you've done well and hopefully embrace that going forward. So with that, I want to thank you for joining me during this very interesting time in the world. I'm glad we were able to connect here. It's been great, very enlightening. I've had a set of questions here that I thought, I generally know some of the answers to or whatnot, and I have for a couple, but a couple you've thrown me a curveball, and I've got a new perspective on things, which I think is great. And I think that's why, I like doing this, talking to people like yourself. And I think that's why people hopefully want to watch an interview like this, is to get a new perspective and to think outside the box and to see things from a new perspective. So hopefully we're able to do that for people. So thank you again. We're going to put all your social media links and your website, and put the link for your TED Talk, below this video as well when we're done here.
Thank you. That would be amazing. Thanks.
I want to thank you again, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Aiden.
Thank you.
Be well.
Cheers.
Stay safe.
You too. Cheers.